Hey, everybody, welcome back one last time. Oh, can you believe it? We are almost here. So we are 15 hours, 16 hours from the AP exam, at least on the East Coast. The rest of you guys, we get a little bit more time than that. So we are absolutely closing in on the AP test. It's almost here. So what we're here to talk about today in this one is going to be the FRQs. So I know the FRQs is probably the part that is going to give you the most anxiety, that has you stressed out the most, and with good reason, because we can be honest now. There's not everybody's here yet, so I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. The multiple choice part isn't that tough. But half your AP score is on the FRQs. So that means you can literally get 100% of the multiple choice. But if you don't get any points on the FRQs, you would have, actually only have a 1. So the multiple choice is only enough to get you a 1. It's not even enough to get you to a 2. And that's for real. So you need to get a significant amount of points on the FRQ. The goal, as I see it, is for those of you who are going for a 5, you're probably going to be getting about 50 questions correct on the multiple choice. And so if you get 50 right on the multiple choice, that leaves you needing to get about 75% of the FRQ points. All right, so just to give you an idea, and I don't know how that sounds to you, if that sounds like, oh, good, that's easy, or if that's like, ooh, that's a lot. Some AP exams, like your tougher ones, some of the math ones, even economics, some of your chemistries, like the percent that you need to get to do really well to get a 5 is really low on some of those tough tests. This test isn't as tough, so you need to get really high scores. So what I like to say is get an A on the multiple choice, so 90% plus on the multiple choice, and then you only need to get about 75%-ish on the FRQs, and you'll get that 5, and you'll be good. Those of you who are just trying to pass because maybe, whatever happened during the year happened, it's senior year, you had senioritis, or maybe there were complications in the year, or maybe whatever, you're just trying now in the last 3 days, this weekend, you're like, all right, I'm gonna cram for it and be good. And hopefully that works out. If you're in that boat and you're just trying to pass, you only need about 60% or so to pass. Now, nobody knows exactly what you need, by the way. So when you talk about AP score calculators and all of this, and every teacher might give you a little bit of different, numbers. All I can give you is the numbers that they released last. They haven't released numbers since 2019 about like what scores you needed to pass. And it did seem like last year they scored it easier than they have in past years. So these numbers might be a little bit lower. You might not need to do quite as well. So we'll see. Lots of people just saying FRQ predictions. I know that I said that I would come back and I'd have predictions for you. So what do you want me to predict? So tell me like what you want me to predict about this. Giovanni just being kind of weird out here. I'm not gonna lie. Making everybody uncomfortable. Yeah, say who you are. That's what I want to know. Who are you? All right. Court case goes. So you just like predict, because that's the thing that is most predictable, right? Because we only have 14 court cases. So which of the 14 court cases is it going to be? So that's what you guys want. All right. Here's the thing. They do 2 standard types of the test, right? So about half of you are going to have one type, about half you're going to have the other type. And there are multiple other ones. So there will be like 3, 4, and 5, all on just the regular exam day, right? So there are going to be a lot of different versions. The one that I will say, and so I'm thinking about this right now. I'm just trying to think of what's been on there recently. I know that one was just on there last year. That one was just on there. I'm going to go with an easy one, which maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should predict like Shaw versus Reno, which would be the one that would terrify people. I'm going to say New York Times versus US will be one of the major versions. New York Times versus US will be one big one. And I think the other one will be McDonald versus Chicago. So I'm not going to cheat and guess more than that, but I will say New York Times versus US and McDonald versus Chicago. Those will be the 2, which I think those would both be pretty nice. Hey, look, Vicky agrees. She said New York Times. What do you know? I don't think that one's been on there yet. And it seems like they haven't been doing the really tough ones. They've done citizens, but they haven't done Shaw, at least on the ones that they release publicly. I don't think they've done Shaw versus Reno yet. I don't think they've done Baker versus Carr. So like those could be there. They just did Lopez last year. So I'm thinking not Lopez, but you never know. All right. Argument essay. Well, we'll talk about that because I do have a theory that all the argument essays are basically the same. So this is going to be, we're going to talk about the essays. We'll talk about the prompts, or not the essays. I'm sorry. The like the FRQs, as far as like what each of them wants you to do, what they look like, the task verbs, how you answer and identify versus how you answer and explain, or this or that. But yeah. Green Bike Lane says, what makes Shaw versus Reno hard? Hey, I don't think it's hard for you, so that's good. So don't worry about it. So yeah. Okay. Lamani, how's Lafayette? My teacher said it'd be Baker versus Carr and Shaw versus Reno. I feel like your teacher is trying to prepare you for the worst, and that's usually what I tell my students too. I've been thinking it was Baker and Shaw for years, and it hasn't been. So yeah. Bump. Okay. 440 people here today. So again, welcome to everybody. That means that there's some people who weren't here for the last one at 6 o'clock. So that's awesome. So again, thank you guys for stopping by. And let's jump into this. So again, if you want to smash that like button preemptively, because you're just sure that you're going to like what we see, I appreciate it. So you can do that while you're thinking about it before you forget. That would be awesome. So thank you in advance for any likes that you share with me. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Like, let's get me to 40K. 40K is a little bit of a small number, but we're growing things. Slow and steady wins the race, right? All right. So you guys, I am sure you know at this point. I hope that you do, but maybe there's some who don't. We have 4 different types of FRQs in AP Gov. So we already know that they are half of your AP score. Each of the 4 are equal. So FRQ1 is 15 points, FRQ2 is 15 points, FRQ3 is 15 points, and FRQ4 is 15 points. Now, there's some good that comes from that. That means that the argument essay is the one that's probably the most annoying to write. I think it's the one that people are probably the most intimidated by. But FRQs 1, 2, and 3 are worth it just as many points. And when we do get to the argument essay, I have good news for you about how it's scored. All right, so I'm going to say some things that might be a little controversial, but I promise it's actually only good news for you. So let's start with the concept application. That's the first one. That's the one that is like a scenario. So it gives you some kind of a scenario, and a lot of times it's an excerpt from a news article or something like that. And with that one, so let me just share my screen real quick. I'm going to show you, this is from last year's AP exam. All right, so this is last year. We had one that was US versus Lopez. Oh, sorry, this is not the right one. There's what I'm looking for. This is the concept application, one of the versions from last year. And so you have about 3 paragraphs of text here. And so you have to read. Now, this one isn't super bad, but sometimes you get a scenario. I don't know if any of you guys did the released one that it was about the Federal Reserve. So you can tell me in the chat if you did the Federal Reserve concept application FRQ. That one was really intimidating. Like, it was really scary to students because they got into such detail about the Federal Reserve. And I know that everybody saw that and was like, oh my God, like, what is this talking about? Here's what I want you to know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about all the details. Don't worry about all the jargon. If they start getting into something complicated, they love to do bureaucracy on this one, love to do bureaucracy on the concept application, which again, I think is one of the more intimidating sections for people. If you skim through this one, you see it gives you stuff about the EPA. Now, this one's friendly because the EPA, of all the agencies, I think it's the one that students can visualize the best. It's the one that I use in my videos because people understand, oh, its job is to protect the environment. So even if we don't understand the details, I don't think this is going to be super intimidating. But just in case you get one where the details are confusing and you're like, it's using words I've never heard of, help calm down, relax. You don't need to know what the issue actually is. All you need to do, so here's the secret. College Board knows that the AP Gov concepts aren't that difficult. And so what they do is they put a lot of stuff all over the really simple, so there's down below, there's like simple AP Gov idea. And they're just trying to cover things up and like, look over here, distract you, make you go this way. They are trying to make it tough because they know deep down that if you did your class and you took the course and you knew the material, it's not actually that bad. Okay, I promise I'm telling you the truth here. So what you have to do is just kind of get through the BS and figure out what's the basic AP Gov concept. So my suggestion is mentally replace EPA with a bureaucratic agency. The details, just be like, okay, they're making regulations or they're doing this or they're doing that, right? Like the details don't matter. Now, what I have written on your screen, it says refer to the scenario in all parts of your response. Now, sometimes the way that the prompt is written in such a way so that you almost couldn't do it without doing that. Other times, you might be able to write the answer and not mention the prompt. To get the points on the concept application, you have to mention the prompt, mention the scenario. So that just means all you have to do, it's really easy. It doesn't take much. Don't say bureaucratic agency, say EPA. If you say EPA, literally, you're good. If you have one and it's talking about, it gives you a scenario about Biden being president. Instead of saying the president, literally say Biden. It's all you got to do. If the law is about immigration, then don't say the law, say the immigration law. All right, so can I get some feedback in the chat? Is everybody good on what it means to reference the scenario? Promise me that you will reference the scenario. All right, it's not difficult, but you have to do it. If you don't do it, you will not get points for this. Now, so here's where I told you, like I'm going to get to the argument essay and I have good news. The concept application is the toughest of the 4 FRQs. I don't know if that's how it seems to you or not. Again, welcome to everybody. We're at 5:42 right now, so thank you guys for being here. I'm not sure if it feels that way to you or not, that the concept application is the toughest, but it is. It's the toughest one. And here's the weird thing about it. Each individual part of the concept application FRQ, these feature the most valuable points on the AP exam. Because each FRQ is worth 15 points, and there's only 3 tasks on this FRQ. The others have 4, 4, and 6 tasks to do in the other 3 FRQs. This one, there's only 3. So if there's any math majors out there, I know Miss Hornberger and Fanine know this. How many points is each part of your FRQ1 worth? 15 points total? Only 3 parts to it. Bump, 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 bump. Looking to the chat, looking to the chat, looking to the chat, looking to the chat. There we go. They're 5 points each. That's worth almost 5 multiple choice questions. Each multiple choice question is worth 1.0909 points. So this is over 4.5 multiple choice questions. So what you got to do, you want to do well in the concept application. Write more than you think is necessary. My suggestion is just don't take any risk. Describe, we'll talk about what those verbs mean in just a moment. But you want to make sure you get these points. So make sure you refer to the scenario. Now, some of you are looking at the prompt and want to do answers for it. I actually have a video that goes over the answers because I'm going to do this again this year. I do it it'll either be late Thursday or early Friday. Most likely the video will come out on Friday, but I do an FRQ answer video. So they will release the FRQs on Thursday afternoon. And once they release that, as soon as they do that, I'm going to spend some time, go through the FRQ. I'm going to make scoring sheets, and I'll have a video posted pretty quickly to give you my version of the answers to the FRQ. So make sure you come back to that. That'll be one of the places where you come back and you celebrate and you tell me how easy the AP exam was and how awesome you did. So I can't wait to see that. It's one of my favorite things every year. So part A, describe the power the EPA used in the scenario to change how it implemented environmental laws under different administrations. This is probably discretionary authority. I didn't actually read the scenario just now. I did it a year ago, but this is probably discretionary authority. Again, describing means you have to give me some detail. You cannot just use that term. So you'd say something about their ability to choose how to implement the policy or the specific details. They can make administrative law, something like that. Part B and C are both explains, so you know you got to do more writing for explains. For explains, so let me just go back over here and let me put this up on the screen. So let's do this right now. If you're told to identify, identify is the easiest thing to do. All you have to do is say the answer. I like you to always write complete sentences. I think that's the best habit to get into. Write a complete sentence and just give the answer. This does not match the FRQ that I'm showing you right now. But if it were a prompt that said to identify the constitutional power Congress is using here, then that's all you do. Congress can make this legislation because of their Commerce Clause powers. That's it. Very, very easy, in and out. If you're told to describe, you're going to include details and characteristics of something. So just, again, what it means. You can't just say the term. You got to show me you understand what that term means, okay? Now, explaining is the biggest one. And you're going to do more explaining than anything else on the FRQs. So you have 2 explains here. You're going to have 1 explain in FRQ2. You're going to have probably 2 explains in FRQ3. And then the essay, it's not going to say explain, but it's wanting you to explain. And so explaining is probably 3 of the points on that FRQ. So explains are super important. I like to say to use the ease of explain. Explain is to provide evidence, to elaborate. All right. So kind of keep talking. You guys have 100 minutes for these FRQs. There's no way they take 100 minutes. They just don't. And now this year you're typing. You're not doing it by hand. So the fact that you're typing should mean that you have plenty of time. Okay. With that, let me just give you a couple of little small pieces of advice when you are doing the FRQ and you're writing. Complete sentences. Each answer gets its own paragraph. All right. Don't worry about labeling A, B, C. You can label, you cannot label. It does not matter. AP readers, we are told to find the answer. Okay. So it doesn't matter whether you put A, B, and C. I would suggest not to do it. It's just not necessary. But put your answers in the right order. Okay. So have your A answer first, then your B, then your C. Skip lines. For the love of all that is good in this world, I am begging you, skip lines between A, B, C, and D. On the argument essay, I'll say this again when we get to the argument essay, skip lines between your thesis, your evidence, etc. Always, always, always skip lines. It makes it so much easier for the reader to find your points, to know what you're talking about. Because when it's all smashed together and it's just a blob of text, first of all, it's not easy on the eyes. You're reading it and stuff is built together. It's like, what am I looking at? I don't even know. And then it's like, okay, they're answering A, and then you're reading. I'm like, okay, they haven't gotten the point for A yet. And then I'm keep reading, and I'm like, wait, are they still on A or are they on B now? Suddenly, that actually seems like they're on C. What are they talking about? Which part are they trying to answer? I promise that happens a lot. Having your whole answer combined into one paragraph is a rookie mistake. It's a beginner move. It's a way to lose points that you should have earned. If you put everything and you have paragraph 1, answer A. Paragraph 2 is B. Skip a space between them. Skip 2 lines between them. All right. I'm telling you, you can do that. Even if it tells you don't skip lines, I'm telling you, every AP reader, and if some of you have teachers who were AP readers, they have probably told you the same thing because we talk about it at lunch. Everybody agrees. Skip lines. It makes it way easier. Now, one other thing closely related, I don't know, because on the Blue Book, it seemed like they were giving you the ability to underline and to highlight, like not highlight, but underline and italicize. If they do give you that ability, I would tell you to use it. I would bold or italicize just keywords or phrases, not the whole thing, because then it's like you're yelling. It's like you're doing all caps or something, and that's annoying. I don't know if they're actually going to let us see if you bold or italicize things. I kind of have a feeling that they're not. So this doesn't really matter. But if they do, I would underline the keyword. So in other words, if there's like a keyword that you want them to see, so like in letter A, I want them to see that I said discretionary authority. So I'm going to write a whole sentence and tell them what it is and show them that I know what it means because I'm describing, but I'm going to underline discretionary authority because, again, let me not say this too loud in case College Board is watching. The readers are human. And when the readers are like, oh, this student knows what they're doing, subconsciously, they're not doing this on purpose. They're not trying to cheat for you or anything like that, but they're humans, and humans can become biased. And we want you to get the readers biased in your favor. All right. Bad handwriting, which you don't have to worry about this year, would get readers biased against you because it'd be like, I can't read what this person says. And they get annoyed at you and they become less patient with your response. They shouldn't, but they're humans. It's what happens, right? So when I open up a response and they have the key phrases underlined, I'm like, oh, and it's correct. They know what they're talking about. They're good. And you might subconsciously score them a little bit easier than you should score them. Okay. So I'm just letting you know. So again, let me just check the chat over here, see if anybody is with me, what we're doing, how we're doing. Again, welcome to all 583 of you here this evening. I hope that you are all doing well tonight. Don't stress. You got this tomorrow. Trust me, we're gonna be good. You guys are gonna cook, not be cooked, okay? Lucienne asks a great question. What order should we write the FRQs in? You got to stick around. I will answer that, but not yet. I'm gonna make you wait for that one. I don't know about Note. I've seen it the last few days pop up, but I've never used that before, so I don't know. But I think I've seen students say good things about it. But as always, whatever works for you, whatever works for some people is different than for other people. Kind of sad you guys can't really see my Deftones shirt. You can just see the cat yelling, but you can't see the logo. I look at it, I'm like, oh man, went to all the trouble. I grabbed this beautiful shirt. Can't even really see it. But that's all right. All right, FRQ2 is the quantitative analysis FRQ. And it looks like this. It's where you're going to have some kind of visual stimulus. You're going to have a graph, a table, a chart. You could have a political cartoon, but so far it's data of some sort, a table. So if you are able to read the chart, this is the easiest one. So when we talk about order, so everybody has different strategies, so there's no one right order to do it. Some people, it's best for you to go for the easy one first, build your confidence, right? So if you're that type of person, start with number 2. I would skip FRQ1. It's the toughest one. Jump to FRQ2 because parts A and B, they're easy. All right. You guys are AP students. I trust that you can read these graphs. I hope that you can. Let me go ahead and actually take my little banner down so that you can see the prompt here. And I'm just going to sip water for a second. You can see the title is Composition of Federal Spending for fiscal years 1962 to 2019. And if you in the chat, let's answer part A in the chat because we can do that. Because this is it's an identified, there's no elaborating, you don't have to explain, you just say the answer, get in there and get out. So there you go, part A. I know it's a little bit small. Giovanni, you have to reveal yourself if you want me to go over discretionary authority versus rulemaking authority. I hope you didn't just hear that. You could hear that water bottle probably made a little bit of sound. All right, so I see a lot of mandatories in the chat. That looks good to me because, I mean, without even looking at this graph, we kind of know that answer, right? A says, identify the type of spending that comprised the greatest percentage of the federal budget in 2016. And that is mandatory. We can see that it is from about 30% of being discretionary, and then from 30, you get up over 90% mandatory. This graph did not include net interest as part of mandatory spending. A lot of times that will be included. So mandatory and interest can be combined or separated. That's where in my notes, I say 70% is mandatory because I'm doing mandatory plus interest. But that's it. Now, imagine that this same prompt said for you to describe the type of spending that comprised the greatest percentage of the federal budget in 2016. If it had said describe, you need to tell me what mandatory spending is. So you'd say something about spending that is required by law, spending that is not part of the annual budget by Congress, but occurs automatically. You would just have to tell me what it is. All right. Part B. Describe the difference in the trends in mandatory versus discretionary spending as illustrated in the graph. So again, I'm going to give you guys just a moment or so and go ahead and do that. Describe the difference in trends in the two, in discretionary, mandatory, and discretionary spending illustrated in the graph. And if you're looking at this right now and you're like, I can't believe this is a real FRQ, I'm kind of with you. Parts A and B are easy money. Do not miss A and B, all right? They should not be tough at all. And again, we're at 675 right now. So this is what I know. People are locking in right now. That's what's happening because they're like, hey, we are, however many hours, we're 15 and a half hours away. We got to get this thing right. So again, if you haven't already, make sure you like the video, smash that like button. If you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. And then do me a favor and don't unsubscribe tomorrow after the AP exam. But if you do, I don't blame you. It's, I get it. All right. So what's happening to mandatory spending? It's increasing. What's happening to discretionary spending? It's decreasing. Now, here's one thing that I want to point out. We are not given the total amount of dollars. All right, so this is where these can be tricky. And anybody who's done my FRQs on the Ultimate Review Packet or the Ultimate Exam Slayer, or even my multiple choice questions, when I write questions with graphs, I write really good trick answers. And so my students, they might know this also because I like to trip them up on this. Do we actually know how many dollars are being spent on mandatory or discretionary spending in any of these years? And the answer is no, we don't. All we know is the share. Look at the left side on the vertical axis. It says the percentage of total federal spending. Now, it is in fact true that federal spending has done nothing but go up from year to year, from 62 to 2019. All right, so federal spending has gone in one direction, it goes up. And so, yes, it's true that 60% of federal spending today is greater than 20% of federal spending was back in the early 1960s. It is true. But do we actually know that from this graph? And the answer is no. So just be careful. I'm going to read you what the scoring sheet says for this one. It says, as a percentage of total federal spending, mandatory spending increased, whereas during the same time frame, discretionary spending decreased. So my suggestion is always, always, always be aware when you have a graph or a table. Is it giving you whole numbers, like amounts, like dollar amounts? Or is it giving you relative shares? Is it absolute or is it relative? All right. That is a big thing to keep in mind. Now, for this one, it might not have mattered. You might have gotten this point either way by talking about mandatory increasing and discretionary decreasing relative to the other. But there are times where, especially on a multiple choice question, I can write choices that look correct because you're like, oh, it's going up. But we don't know. All we know is the share. All right. So again, hopefully that makes sense. How did mandatory spending increase? Because mandatory, so discretionary, so again, let's make sure that we're reading this correctly. From 0 to like 68% in 1962, this was all discretionary, this whole vertical way. Mandatory is only from 68 to like 93 or something like that. So that means here it was only 25%. It's just that vertical distance. So you can see how small that is there. And then when you go over to 2019, discretionary is only from 0 to 30. Mandatory is from 30 up over 90. So it's over 60%. So hopefully that helps because it's mandatory is definitely increased. It's doubled in that time frame. Okay. All right. Letter C. Now, this is the one I want to caution you about. So everybody comes in and absolutely cooks on part A and B on FRQ2. And then people get destroyed by FRQ3. I don't know if there's any teachers. So I don't know if Vicky is here or if Mr. Who's the guy that Kaysen is always talking about? I just forgot his name. I'm so embarrassed. But if there's any teachers in the chat and they want to back me up on this, if they've ever been a reader for FRQ2, everybody kills it on FRQ1 and 2, or part A and B, I'm sorry, on part A and B on this FRQ. And then they just get destroyed on FRQ3. Why? Because, well, let me just kind of ask you guys, like C. I'll let you put it in the chat. Thank you, Mr. Truong. Give me your answers to part C real quick in the chat. We're going to go faster. I'm not going to do this for the rest of them because we got to go faster for sure. But yeah, part C says draw a conclusion about Congress's budgetary choices based on trends in the data. And actually, let's not worry about putting answers in. This would take too long. Here's what people do wrong. For part C, C is going to be draw a conclusion. And people end up saying another version of their answer from part B. Part B told you to describe a trend. And then people get to part C, and guess what they do? They describe a trend again. This does not want you to describe a trend. It does not want you to say, Congress is choosing to spend more on mandatory than on discretionary. Like you just said that. What they want to know, what draw a conclusion means, is for you basically to formulate a reason why, give an explanation for why that data exists. Sometimes it's to draw a conclusion about what would be an outcome or a result, a consequence of that data. In which case, it's again, same idea. It's don't repeat what the data say, but now tell me, well, if the data is true, then what could that mean? What would be a result of that? Okay. So what we're looking at here is based on that trend, larger share for mandatory, smaller share for discretionary, right? That's the trend we're talking about. What could that tell us about Congress's budget choices? So it could just tell us that because mandatory is increasing automatically, Congress is reducing the amount that they spend on discretion. Now, that's very, very similar. But again, notice that it's giving us a cause here. The cause is that mandatory is automatically getting bigger. And so there's less room for Congress to spend money on discretionary spending, right? Another thing we could say, drawing a conclusion about this trend. Like, all right, well, if the spending on mandatory is rising so much, then maybe Congress will raise taxes so it can afford that spending. Maybe they won't. Maybe we'll just go into debt. But that could be another example, which is Congress wants to do more discretionary spending, but we have so much mandatory spending. So we just run bigger national or budget deficits, or we increase the national debt. So these would be conclusions. And I hope that you see how that's different than just saying what the trend is. So what does it actually mean for Congress? All right. And then the last one, part D, explain how an interest group might respond. D is always a wild card. So A, B, and C are very, very predictable. Identify, describe, draw a conclusion about the data. And then D is going to be something else. So again, that's a pretty easy part D. That's not a bad one. But let me come back over because let me just see. Yeah, so here's draw conclusion. I didn't put this up on the screen a moment ago, but here it is for you. Use the information to make an accurate statement that demonstrates understanding based on evidence. So this is where you're going to kind of combine your AP Gov knowledge with, all right, the data says this, and so here's why that might occur. Okay. Shout out to Mr. Frump's classes. All right, lock in for the exam and get a 5. Very nice. All right, appreciate the love, the support. All right, Jocelyn maybe understands. If you don't, it's not that huge of a deal. This is a point that a lot of students don't get, but this is the kind of thing that I want to give you an advantage on that AP exam. All right. Mr. Lamana, you said before that Congress could cut mandatory spending through passing legislation, but can you explain how? Yeah, they just need to pass a new law. So if they wanted to change Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid, like these entitlement programs that are the large parts of mandatory spending, all they have to do is pass a new law and they would change it. Now, why do we make this its own category? Because if they don't pass a new law, that money will get spent automatically year after year after year. Every year that goes by without them changing it, the money will get spent automatically, okay? Now, I say it like it's easy, but the lawmaking process, easy or difficult? The answer is very, very difficult, right? And because it's difficult, it makes it very challenging, especially when you're talking about reducing or changing a project or a policy that is very popular. So I hope that that makes sense. All right. All right. Next is our court comparison. The secret to this one is just knowing your cases. If you know the facts, the holding, and the reasoning for all 14 of your cases, there's nothing to this one. This is my favorite of the FRQs. I think it's the best one on the AP exam. I think it actually builds a very useful skill in asking you to see new information and to apply it to something that you do know. So I love this one. Anybody who's like going into law school, you're going to do this kind of thing about 10 million times. It's you taking the precedent of one case and seeing how it applies or doesn't apply to another case. So I actually really love this FRQ. This one often scores the second toughest though. So that might be because students don't really know their cases too well, or it might be because part B gives you really poor instructions. And so I'll take a minute and explain that. All right, part A, identify the constitutional clause common to both U.S. versus Lopez and Katzenbach versus McClung. So this is where I tell you, you can answer part A without reading those 3 paragraphs. Now, this case, I was excited when I saw this. My students had this one last year because I teach this case every year. I've taught this case for 15 years. It is one of the more interesting ones. It's about the Civil Rights Act. It's a crazy story. How the court got there is very interesting. So I tell them this story every single year. But that doesn't matter. All you need to know to answer part A correctly is what's the constitutional clause for U.S. versus Lopez. And I definitely see people putting some answers in there. Not too many, but I see a few. Matthew missed my predictions earlier. Shout out to all 733 people that are here right now. Again, you want to smash that like button. If you want to subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. If you're looking for multiple choice practice, check out the Ultimate Review Packet. Check out the Exam Slayer. They're online. You can be practicing. The more questions you see, the easier the test will be tomorrow. If you're just here for the live, then let's enjoy this and, use the videos and get ready. You guys are going to be great either way tomorrow, I promise. It is the Commerce Clause. So you guys are absolutely correct about this. It is the Commerce Clause, and that's all you got to say. The clause common to both cases is the Commerce Clause. All right. Now, Part B. Here is the thing about Part B. It says, explain how the facts in U.S. versus Lopez and Katzenbach versus McClung resulted in different holdings. That sounds like it's one task. It is not. It is 2 tasks, even though one of them they don't overtly tell you. So this one, it drives me crazy. This is where you have to have an experienced teacher. If you had a teacher who isn't experienced with AP Gov, they might not have known this. And that's really not fair because the only way you could learn that is it's tough, man. But what you really have to do is first describe the facts in U.S. versus Lopez. So let me pull this up. Yeah, here we go. Part B is worth 2 points. 1 point is for describing the facts, holding, or reasoning of the required case. I put all 3 of those because you don't know which one it's going to be beforehand, right? It could be the facts, it could be the holding, it could be the reasoning, which again, just take a minute and remember, facts, holding, and reasoning are not interchangeable. So again, I'm going to ask the chat, what's the facts refer to? All right. What are the facts? So let me know in the chat what are the facts. Now you can tell me the facts of Lopez, or you can just tell me what facts mean generally for all cases. All right. What do the facts mean here? The second point in Part B, as you guys tell me what the facts refers to, is the second point in Part B, which is for explaining either what's similar or different about the cases. And this is where you're going to actually make your comparison. Say, here's the key thing in the first case, the required one. Here are the key things in the new one. And taking that together, here's why the court ruled similarly or ruled differently in those 2 cases. Like a lot of you guys are saying, key details and background. What happened? So it's the background information. It's the how did this case get to the court? What happened before it got to the court? The holding is how the court ruled on the case. So they struck down the Gun-Free School Zones Act in this one, right? The reasoning, why did they strike down the Gun-Free School Zones Act? Because they said that Congress was exceeding its power under the Commerce Clause. All right, so that's your facts, holding, and your reasoning. Now, to get that first point, again, it doesn't tell you this, so it's crazy. Describe the facts of Lopez. So you basically say something about a kid brought a gun to school, was arrested for violating a federal law. So I'm sure that some of you might have been asking this. I haven't really looked because the chat is a scary place right now. But people always want to know, how much detail do you need? Do you need to know the name of the kid who got arrested? No. I mean, his last name is Lopez, but no, you don't need to know that. Do you need to know the name Gun-Free School Zones Act? No. What if you call it the anti-gun law? That's fine. What if you call it you call it the wrong thing? It's fine. So what do you need to know about this? You need to know that it involved a federal law. It involved somebody getting arrested for breaking a federal law at school. Okay. So what I would say to this one, by the way, the more facts you know, the better. Okay. So I would say something like, in U.S. versus Lopez, a student was arrested for bringing an unloaded gun to school in violation of the federal, and that's the important part, it's a federal law, in violation of the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. Knowing myself, I wouldn't write Gun-Free School Zones Act. I would put Gun-Free, GFSZA, Gun-Free School Zones Act. I would do it as an acronym, and I would hopefully be able to figure out that acronym slightly faster than I just did right now on the spot, where I might have said C instead of Z. But okay. Yeah. If I need to ban Giovanni, let me know if I see something. Okay. All right. So consider that a formal warning, because I am not on that screen where I can do it easily. So hopefully he doesn't make it worse, and I will get on that screen and I will do that if need be. Okay. So Giovanni, you're considered yourself warned. All right. So with the core comparison, again, we did part B, tell me the facts. And now we need to focus on the second point of part B. This is the tougher point in this one. How did these facts result in different holdings? And if you notice what I have on the screen after the semicolon, I said include details about the new case. Okay. Include details about the new case. So they gave you the details here, right? And so I know sometimes students are like, why do I need to say it? Because I didn't know it before. So should I just repeat things that it gave you? And the answer is yes. Should you repeat everything? No. The question is, what are the key things in here? So again, if you guys want to help me out in the chat, which is, what are the key things in this new case, Katzenbach versus McClung? What are the key things that led to the court ruling differently in this case than it did in Lopez? So remember, in Lopez, it struck down the federal law and it said, nope, that does not affect interstate commerce. So is there anything in this scenario that you can find where we could see something that does, in fact, affect interstate commerce? And I will leave that to you guys for just a second. I'm going to sip water. I'm going to look at the chat and see if I see something that is deserving of a ban. I haven't seen it. Doesn't mean it wasn't there. The chat moves pretty fast. So what in the chat tells us that this could affect interstate commerce? All right, well, if we look at it, okay, we have restaurant, blah, blah, blah. Congress passed the Civil Rights Act, blah, 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 is passed on economic activity given the travel of African Americans between states. Okay, interesting. But they said that they purchase half their food from an in-state supplier. So they said that this is local and it's intrastate, not interstate. Blah, blah, blah. The court reasoned that because the restaurant purchased about half its food from an out-of-state supplier, and because Congress sought to resolve the problem of discrimination that was a national or an interstate issue, Congress had the power to enact the legislation that regulated the restaurant. So in other words, I would say those two things. And I would tell you to do both. You have time. Because if let's say that you say something that isn't part of it. So let's say you threw in this detail for no reason. You're like, well, in Katzenbach, the restaurant had a seating capacity of 200. So that let the Congress regulate it. That's totally wrong. Like that has nothing to do with anything. But if your next sentence says, and The restaurant purchased half its food from an out-of-state supplier, so that's interstate commerce. And discrimination was a national or an interstate issue, you would earn that point. So on explains, you can't do this on identifies. So don't do this for identifies. But on explains, you can essentially give multiple explanations. And if you get a right one, as long as you don't directly contradict yourself, you'll be okay on that. All right. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, you can, my advice on explains is always say more. Say more until you're satisfied and you're like, all right, I said enough. I got this point, and you want to take your nap and, enjoy the hard-earned fruits of your labor and take a good nap for the last 20 minutes or half hour, however long, do that and you'll be good. All right, last up is the argument essay. All right, so argument essay, let me just see if I'm just curious. I did not make anything there for that. Okay, I didn't. So with the argument essay is the most intimidating but low-key easy part of the AP exam. They used to score it really obnoxiously, and now they score it pretty easily. So tell me if you can do these two things. Can you write me a valid thesis statement? And can you give me one thing from a required document that they give you that is accurate and relevant? So that's 2 sentences I've asked you to write. If you can write me 2 sentences, you're at 3 out of 6 points if you do those 2 sentences correctly. Half your points on this argument essay are from the first 2 sentences. That's weird. I don't know exactly why we do it that way, but that is true. Probably nobody's told you that. I don't tell my students that until like right now, so maybe some of them are watching. The person that everybody wants banned, one of mine, I'm not even sure that person actually is an AP Gov. I kind of think they're not an AP Gov, but I don't know who it is. So yeah. Okay. Here is your argument essay that we're looking at on this one. It says, over time, there has been conflict between the president and Congress over their roles in domestic policy. What I want you guys to do is I want you to write a thesis statement for me. All right. So go ahead and write a thesis statement for this one. If you can see it, I hope that you can see it. I'll make it just a little bit bigger. Conflict between the president and Congress over their roles in domestic policy making. Develop an argument as to whether the president or Congress should have more power over domestic policy making. All right, so I'm not going to tell you anything about this yet. I'm just going to ask you, do me a favor, write a thesis statement. All right, and I'm going to give you guys just a moment. I'm going to look at the chat a little bit more. Again, as you guys are writing a thesis statement to put in the chat, thank you again for being here. I love to see it. We got 786 right now. So we'll see how, I always like when we hit 1,000. 1,000 feels really good. I don't know if we're going to quite get that far tonight. That's okay. But I do appreciate each and every one of you being here this evening. And I truly hope that it's helping. We are almost done with my part. And then I am just going to kind of let the chat go, and I'm going to answer questions as much as possible. I told you yesterday I benched 275, but I want more. I think I have it in me. My goal is by the end of the year, I want 300. I thought I was going to get 300 by the end of the year last year, but then I hurt my back, and then there's a whole thing. Alina, don't worry. You're going to do well, all right? You're going to be good. So I know these tests can get stressful. You got it. I promise. All right. So I see lots and lots and lots of thesis statements coming in, and that is great to see. Fangs asks a really good question, which is, yo, Carrie, can we name the documents and tell the clause associated with it? In the thesis statement, do not name documents. So I obviously can't read everybody's responses right now. I see all these thesis statements. I think Emma's must be a good job. I'm going to trust Vicky on that one because I'm not reading them. I told you that already yesterday too. 455. Come on. Lightweight. All right. So, bum, bum, bum. What we need is two key things, or are two key things. You need both the claim and the line of reasoning, which is actually up on your screen. So that's hopefully helpful. What the claim means is just tell which side you picked, right? So you had two options here. Very, very simple. It's either Congress or it's the president. So use the words in the prompt, always and forever. Don't get cute. To me, everybody should be writing almost the exact same thing for the, what's it called? For the thesis statement. Here's what I would write. I would say, so I'll say Congress, it doesn't matter. Congress should, and I would underline Congress. Congress should have more power over domestic policy making because, and I would underline the word because, and then you just give a basic reason why. So Congress should have more power over domestic policy making because members of the House are closer to the people. Period. Boom. That's it. Congress should have more power over domestic policymaking because the House is closer to the people. Or if you want it the other way, the president should have more power over domestic policymaking because he is the only person elected by the whole country. That's it. That is not evidence. I did not name a document. Do not name documents in your thesis. Do not mention an alternative perspective in your thesis. I know that that has been out there, that some people in the past have told students to, mention the other side, mention some may think that it's the president, but really Congress should be making them. Don't do that. The way that I just told you is the simplest and surest way to get that point. All right. So one reason, one claim. Congress should have more power over domestic policy making because the House is closest to the people. So let me just pause right there. Do I have questions about the thesis? I only care about the thesis right now. Notice what's on the screen if there are any questions for your thesis, put them in the chat right now. No intro, no conclusion, no contextualization. All right. This is not the DBQ from APUSH or from AP World. All right. It's not. It is way easier. It is not really an essay. That word essay is there to scare you, okay? I promise. If you write it properly, you can get a 6 out of 6, a perfect score on the argument essay in about 8 sentences. And if you write really well, you might be able to do it in less than that. This is not an essay. Do not be intimidated by it, okay? So I'm trying to look. Since I said that, I saw a couple reactions. Bump. Don't you need 2 reasons? Not in your thesis. So that's a question. That's Bear Flower. You do not. Astro, do you only need 1 reasoning? In your thesis, only 1 reason. Bethany, why not 2 claims in the thesis? Because you're just picking your side. So look at the instructions. All it tells you to do is, it's the first check mark. Respond to the prompt with a defensible claim or thesis that establishes a line of reasoning. That is a singular thing, a line of reasoning, 1 line of reasoning. So Amaya wants to know, can she do 3 reasons in the thesis? Do not do 3 reasons in the thesis. There is no reason for that. This is where you start to get yourself in trouble because it becomes unclear to the reader. Is this a line of reasoning or is this evidence? It should be clear and distinct that all I'm doing here is saying it's the president because he's the only one elected by the whole country. It's Congress because they are closer to the people. Congress because they're up for election every 2 years in the House. That's it. Ghostia says, Mr. Lamano with a lot of exclamation points. Should we be vague about naming documents then? Like instead of Federalist 70, quote, the individual executive. Okay. When I say don't name documents, so far, please make sure you're understanding me because I don't want to confuse anybody. This is really important. In your thesis statement, do not name documents. Don't name the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, Brutus, letter from Birmingham jail, none of them. Do not name a document in your thesis statement. You will very shortly name a document, but that will be in your evidence, okay? So all I'm talking about so far, is the thesis statement, all right? No documents being named there. Deja says, wait, that's crazy. Shouldn't you list 2 reasons since you're using 2 different sources? No. Each of your reasons are going to support your thesis. It's just one thesis. You're making one claim and supporting it with 2 different pieces of evidence. That's what you're doing. You are not making 2 different claims. Does that make sense? That has to make sense because it really, I promise. Let me start scrolling down because I'm up a little bit too high and I've been talking. So let's see if people still have questions on this or not. All right. Alice says, thanks. Charles says, can we name the documents and the reasoning? So we'll get to that. Carson says, could I use Federalist 51 and talk about what powers the executive? Okay, so we're talking about the body of the essay yet. I'm not worried about that yet. I'm just on the thesis statement right now. You smell like cheese says, so you only need 1 point. You only need 1 line of reasoning in the thesis statement. Charles, can we name documents and the reasoning? Again, I'll get to that. Avocado, for the first paragraph, we only put a thesis statement. Yes, that's it. 1 sentence. That's your whole paragraph. Hit enter 1 or 2 times, skip a line, skip 2 lines, and then we will start the evidence. All right. So this should be super easy for the reader. Again, I would underline the word Congress or president, and I would underline the word because. I'm telling you that will make the reader be like, oh my God, this student is making my life easy. He or she knows exactly what they're doing. We are good here. Jackson says, why should you not name documents? Because on the scoring sheets, they specifically tell readers not to give points for that. That's why. Because we are literally told to not reward name dropping. So they have given you the names of the documents, right? They told you you're going to use Federalist 51, 70, your article in the Constitution. Why would we give you any points for saying that? They're on the prompt. That is the sure sign of a student who does not know how to write a thesis. And I hate to say that. And I don't know if anybody's been told to do it that way. If you have, it's not correct. So hopefully you haven't been told. Hopefully you just looked at the instructions. We're like, oh, I'll do that. But I hope that makes sense. Like we are literally given instructions. So if you were to ask any AP reader, I think that would probably be their biggest advice on the argument essay is to get your thesis point and don't name documents. Tamara asks, why do we need 2 sentences? You don't. You need 1 sentence for the thesis. That's it. What are we talking about 2 sentences for? I don't understand. I've said all we've done is write 1 sentence so far. That's it. Alina, why are AP so hard? They don't need to be this stressful. You're good. Don't worry. You got this. Bianca, should it be in paragraph form? Separate thesis and evidence? Yes. 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 We're going to have everything in 4 separate paragraphs. That does not mean we're really writing 4 paragraphs. We're not. It's easier than that, but we are going to write them separately. Okay. I am way behind in the chat. Shout out Mr. Roberts. I almost passed right by that. That would have been rude of me. I apologize. So thank you very much. And shout out Mr. Roberts. Shea is better than Giannis and Jalen. All right. I'm not mad at that take. I think Jokic should win MVP, but maybe, you know what? You like Shea and he put $2 in there. So you know what? Shea is also amazing. So all right. He is not a foul merchant. He's not James Harden or now Jalen Brunson. All right. So I'm with you there. Okay. Bear asks, how about Congress should have more power? Oh, this is just another over domestic policy because the House is closer. Yeah, that's fine. The and doesn't ruin anything. So you can do it. There's no reason to do it, but you can do it if you are, feeling stressed. Isabella asks basically that. Tamara says, do we need 2 sentences for the thesis? No, just 1 sentence. Just 1 sentence. No, Jada, you do not need a counterclaim. Avocado says, how long are the paragraphs? As short as necessary. There's no length on these. It's, did you answer? Did you do the job? The thesis has 2 jobs. Make a claim. Give a single 1 line of reasoning. Those are your 2 jobs. Once you've done that, get out of there. You're done. Okay. How many paragraphs? Again, we'll get to that. That doesn't really matter too much. Are we okay? Because I feel like the thesis statement, we were doing good, and now people are crashing out a little bit on the thesis statement. It's not bad, I promise. What I'm telling you is that it's easier than you might have thought that it was. I'm going to scroll all the way back down and get live with the chat. Rayon asks if I can read my super chat. Did I already? I think that I did. I hope that I did. I'm pretty sure yours was the Shea one. This is how far behind I am on the chat. Vanessa, so our documents are supporting our thesis. We don't need to make another claim. Correct. Brady, what's a good way to bring up your evidence? We'll get to that. We're going to do that right now. All right. 40 minutes for 8 sentences. Exactly. They're giving you have time to plan, which remember, you can have paper. If you want to plan out something on paper, you can do that. Waffle House doesn't agree with me. Waffle House knows that I've been an AP reader since 2014 and that I have unfortunately read thousands of argument essays before. What you can do, if you really want to look, you can look up the scoring guidelines for the release exams. Like, you can look, I promise. It's all there. I'm just trying to save you time. It's 2 pieces of evidence. We haven't gotten there yet. So look, first check mark, respond to the prompt with a defensible claim, one claim that establishes one line of reasoning. Everybody's jumping to the next one. You're trying to mix the evidence with the line of reasoning. Don't do that. All right. The second check mark says support your claim with at least 2 pieces of specific and relevant evidence. One claim, 2 pieces of evidence. Okay. I think that this makes sense. I think that I have explained this very well. Yes, Jocelyn, I know that you're going to get a 5. Jackson, why is it so important? Because how can you support a claim if you don't have a claim, right? The whole point of the essay is that you are making an argument and you are supporting it with evidence. If you did not successfully make the argument, how can you support it? Okay. Bump, 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 bump. Brian is confused because A push and world instincts we ditch. You ditch what I just said. All right. It's easier. Don't worry about it. Bump, bump, bump. Yeah, it's helpful to know the section of the articles because you see what this is, right? You see that this prompt isn't saying the Constitution is specific to Article 1. So hopefully we know that Article 1 is Congress. Chisholm asks about lesser known terminology used on the AP exam. Everything is in the CED, and I made my study guides that are on the Ultimate Review packet from the CED. So if it's in the study guides, it's on the CED, which means it can be on the AP exam. It's hard to say what's lesser known or more known. But yeah, they have told us exactly the vocab that's on these tests, which is why my study, review things are so good. Lucian, if I put in 2 claims, am I going to get points off? It's not that you get points off. It's that you don't earn the thesis point. You have to make 1 claim. If you make more than 1 claim, you will not get the point. You cannot argue both sides and you can't argue neither. So for this one, you have to say either Congress or the president. You cannot say both and you can't say neither. You have to pick one of the 2 choices it gives you. I saw, yeah, okay, so somebody just said it and now the chat moved on me. But okay, Delilah says, my AP Gov teacher taught me, although X, A and B, and the chat's moving on me, therefore Y. Yeah, don't do it that way. I don't know. That's, again, that is much more how you would do it in other subjects. It is not the AP Gov FRQ way. Again, look on College Board, Google College Board, get to College Board's website. They will show you sample responses and you can see released exam FRQs. I have videos that show you approved correct answers from AP students. But no, that's not the right way to do it. I apologize for that. I wish I gave you better news right there. But yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move away from the chat. Holy Lord, I was way behind. So I know I just skipped a lot, but that's kind of how that goes. Okay, let's get to the evidence. So now we're on to the evidence. So again, we have only written 1 sentence so far. Thesis statement, made our claim, line of reasoning, skip a line, new paragraph. We are now on evidence. So our instructions for the evidence. Support your claim with at least 2 pieces of specific and relevant evidence. 1 piece of evidence must come from one of the foundational documents listed above. A second piece of evidence can come from any other foundational document not used in your first piece of evidence, or it may be from your knowledge of course concepts. Okay. Again, thank you to the nearly 800 people who are still on right now. Stay locked in. We got this. All right. this is actually not too bad either. First sentence, what we are now going to do is we are going to start by identifying which document we're using for evidence, okay? If we did the president, Federalist 70 might make a lot of sense here. So I might start with that one. Federalist 51 you can use for either of them, right? Because it's just checks and balances, separation of powers. So you can make either claim with that. It's not a problem. Article 1 is the powers of Congress, and that includes their ability to make legislation on various things, their power to tax. So let's do that one. I'm going to start with Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power to tax, to make lots of legislation, including the power to tax and make other domestic policy, period. Stop right there. All I've done is identify my document, and I said something that is both accurate and relevant to the claim that Congress should be the one making domestic policy. That's 2 points. If you have a valid thesis statement point, they give you 2 points for getting your first piece of evidence. It needs to be accurate, specific, and relevant. So it can't be so vague, but all you got to do is something like that. Article 1 gives Congress the power to make legislation, including laws about things like taxation for domestic policy. All you got to do. Deftones album is White Pony, for sure. Song, I don't know, might be Passenger. Passenger's a really, really great one. Okay. Kaysen says, I need him to answer my question, but your question wasn't real. So Giovanni is still coming back with the 10IC thing. I've seen that like 6 times already. It's not ban worthy, but it's, you know, man. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. My teacher showed us an example that was multiple pages long. I'm cooked. It does not need to be multiple pages long. Don't worry. So again, that's all you got to do. Okay. Can you use a Supreme Court case for evidence too? Yes, you can. My advice is to, generally speaking, use a document. Usually the documents work out like they did here, where you have one that can be used for either side, one that's specific to one side and one that's specific to the other side. So I like to say, if you can, I think documents is the easiest way to do it. But if you can't think of something else, then use a case. That's fine. The Constitution is always great as a backup because you have, remember, the whole Constitution. You have your powers of Congress, you have your executive powers, you have the Bill of Rights. So you have things that give states power in the 10th Amendment. You have things that give the federal government more power with Commerce Clause, Necessary and Proper Clause, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. You have lots of things. So I love the Constitution as being a your second piece of evidence whenever possible. Who's crashing out? Not me. I know that's for sure. Do we need real world examples? No, you don't. Bill of Rights, Brutus. Okay. Shout out my gov teacher, Mrs. Mensch. What's up, Mrs. Mensch? You got a great student named Kennedy. She's a real one, I think. Jackson thinks Kaysen's question was very important. Bianca says, do we need to include a rebuttal? We'll get there. We're not there yet. Do you have any examples by what it means by a course concept? Literally what that means is anything you know from AP Gov. Like it is literally that broad. My advice though, again, as an experienced AP reader, there are kind of different bars or standards you need to get a point. If you're using a document, the bar is down here. If you're using a non-document, like just an idea of something, the bar is higher, meaning it's tougher to get that point. It's possible. You just have to write something really strong. It is easier to get the point when you use documents, okay? So you say what the document you're in and you say something that's accurate and relevant. 1 sentence. So we're at 2 sentences in and we're at 3 points right now. Now the rest of that paragraph is you explaining. So now we get to the point. Explain how that evidence supports your claim. So now I said that Congress has the power to tax. How does that support the fact that Congress should be making, should have more power over domestic policy? So then I have to use reasoning. So I'm going to say something that is not in the document and figure out how does that apply and help. So I will say something like, This shows that Congress should have more power making domestic policy because the framers gave Congress the power to tax, putting them in charge of spending on domestic issues such as a social safety net or defense or whatever. Defense isn't great because that's not really domestic policy, but yeah, but you get the idea. This is how I take the power to tax and I turn it into why Congress should have more power for domestic policy. If I did Federal 70 and I said the president, I'd say how we need a unitary executive, energetic president should have power. Then I'd say this shows why the president should have more power over domestic policy because they can act quicker in moments of crisis, because they can respond quickly to the needs of the people or something like that. All right. Okay. Hey, golfer says I hit 40K. I hope that's true. That'd be nice. I'm just showing 39.7, but if I hit 40, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And golfer, tip of the hat for you. Oh, Bianca says it too. Now it must be true if golfer and Bianca said it. Yeah, you can use. So Bear Flower is just after my heart right now, saying Federal 70 and what it says about Congress being slow and deliberate. Yes, you can use that. You're absolutely right. I love when people say that. It's one of my favorite parts of Federal 70. It's kind of one of those low-key parts, but you're absolutely right. Zishan wants this live over. Zishan is like, how much longer is this live? I mean, you can click out anytime you want. It's okay. I'm not mad. There are, more efficient ways to review, looking at videos and stuff. I will not shave the beard. That's not happening. You're welcome, Alice. Thank you for the politeness. Green Bike Lane also says 40K, so that's awesome. Yay, 40K. Woo! I did a few years ago celebration video for 10K. And there was like, oh, we need merch now. And then it's been like 4 years and I'm only just now at 40K. I kind of thought the first 10K was going to be the toughest and then it's going to like explode after that. But, I am not taking the exam, Jocelyn. You're absolutely right. You're right about that. Thank you. Thank you for the 40K love. That's awesome. That's exciting. Yay. Shout out to Mr. Klein. I don't know if he's a diva or not. And I don't know if Bianca views Mr. Klein alleged diva status as a good thing or not. I don't know if Mr. Klein would like to be known as a diva or not. Yeah. All right. I don't know what Giovanni said, but the holy airball is great. So Jazz, I'm here for that. That was fantastic. All right. I'm going to look away from the chat again because we're not accomplishing anything right now. Whew, I am way far behind. Shout out to Mrs. Obando, Mr. Sterling. Okay. Calp said, my teacher told me to do the although otherwise. I know that is a common way teachers teach that. Again, on the AP Gov teacher Facebook group, you would see that the overwhelming advice from experienced teachers is not to do that. That's all I can tell you. Maybe it'll work for you. You're gonna have to decide what to do. Maybe look at some released AP FRQs from College Board. They have the years going back. So just look at 2024. There's 2 sets of them. Look and see how they wrote those and do yours that way. I think you'll find them to be the way that I'm telling you to do it. But that's all I can do is to say that. Shout out to Mrs. Fowler and Mr. Rogowski. Appreciate both of you guys and Mrs. Fannin. You guys are amazing. All right. So then again, you do the explain thing. Paragraph 3, you do the same thing as paragraph 2 again. Name a document if you have a document for that second piece of evidence. Say something accurate and relevant, and then explain how it supports your thesis. The last thing I want to touch on is closing the loop. Closing the loop is going to feel like a pointless thing to do. And so some of you are going to choose not to do it tomorrow. I can't help it. I'm going to tell you to do it. I tell my students, do it. Most of them will do it because most of my students end up getting 5s, but some people don't do it. Technically, it's optional. All right. So this is not a requirement. And this is why some people are going to not do it. It is just at the end of your evidence paragraph. All I need you to do is write another sentence. So this is going to be like sentence number 3, possibly sentence 4, but it's probably your 3rd sentence. And you're just going to say something like, therefore, this shows why Congress should have more power over domestic policy making. Or therefore, this shows why the president should have. And you might be wondering, how on earth is that going to help? So that's what it means to close the loop. What I just said is closing the loop. Therefore, Congress should have more power. And you're like, this is literally just saying the thesis statement again. Yes. It is. But what it's also doing is it's showing the reader, hey, I just did what you told me to do. It's easy to find, oh, that's the piece of evidence. So they said Federalist 70 says energetic executive, unitary executive. That's easy. They're not going to miss that point. The point that is tough, and it's all so often, it's like a 50-50 call. You're like, ooh, did they explain enough? And you're staring at it, and you might show the person next to you, like, is this enough? Did this quite get the point? I will tell you from, again, years of experience, if it's a 50-50 and the student hasn't closed the loop, they're probably not getting the point. If it's a 50-50, but they then close the loop and they said, hey, I just explained, the reader is probably going to take your word for it and be like, okay, I think they explained. I'm just telling you, all right? I'm not saying that it should be that way, but I promise you that that's true. Okay, so I hope that helps you. I hope you believe me. Bearflower says, my teacher said if we can't come up with a counterclaim, we shouldn't try. Okay, we'll get to the counter in just a moment. Ben, my boy, says, LaMoney, do you think there might be a higher chance of having something related to Marbury versus Matt? Personally, I don't think we're ever going to see Marbury on the FRQ. That's my belief, because the background of the case is so confusing, with it being about the midnight appointments and about the Judiciary Act and about who has jurisdiction over a case. And that's not even what we care about, right? All we care about is it established judicial review, and it's using the supremacy clause. Like, so to me, I think Marbury versus Madison is a lock for a multiple choice question. Personally, I think it's highly unlikely to be an FRQ, because it's just such a weird case to use the facts to explain how they get judicial review, because the facts don't match judicial review, if that makes sense. So that's my thought. I don't know what you think of that. Let me know in the chat what you think. I'm always interested what other teachers think about that, but that's my opinion. All right. The last thing is the alternative perspective. And this is the part, so I'll tell you a couple things. So I think it was Bearflower said that his teacher says, if you can't do it, then don't do it. Don't even try. I don't know that I would agree and go to that extreme, but I will tell you, of all the points, you probably are going to have to do more work for this point, and it's still just worth 1 point, right? Like, it's 1 out of 6. So it's 2.5 points. I want you to get the point, and if you have time, write it and go for it. Actually, real quick, before I say this, you can do more than 2 evidences. If you have time and you didn't love your second piece of evidence and you've done the rest of the FRQ, come back and do a third piece of evidence. If 2 of them are right, you'll get your points. You can have one that's totally wrong. So just so that you're aware of that, you can do that. Okay, back to this. Argument, essay, alternate perspective, that's where we are. So we're at the very bottom of this. We're at the last check mark, and it says, respond to an opposing or alternate perspective using refutation, concession, or rebuttal. This is from 2024. You can see that on the screen, top left corner. This is the release FRQ from 2024. Before 2024, they told us that concession was not going to be an option anymore. And then it was. They are still telling us concession will not be an option. So be prepared for it to not be on there. All I can say is they told us that last year, and you can see it on your screen right now. It was on there. So whether it is or isn't on there, it doesn't really matter. It won't really change how you write anything. What I need you to do is, okay, so let's just recap. Paragraph 1, just your thesis statement, 1 sentence. Skip a line. Paragraph 2, identify your document. Say something accurate and relevant and specific from that document. Explain how that supports your evidence, your thesis, and then close the loop. Skip a line. Do it again, paragraph 3, exactly the same thing. Identify your document. Say something accurate and relevant from that document. Explain how it supports your claim or thesis. Close the loop. All right, we are approximately 7 or 8 sentences in right now. Last paragraph. So skip a line again. And so here, to go with Bearflower about this and about doing it or not doing it, here's what I need you to do. First sentence of paragraph 4, this is your alternate perspective. you are going to make a transition to make it abundantly clear to anybody who is reading this that I am no longer supporting my claim. I am now talking about the other side. And when you do that, it will not confuse the reader. So there are two really, really simple ways to do it. Here's what I like to say. Alternate perspective. I'm going to write it this way. I'm going to say, on the other hand, some may argue that. And then I will identify what, on the other hand, some may argue that. When you say on the other hand, or some may argue that, it is clear. I said those other things. I said Congress. On the other hand, some may argue that the president should have more power over domestic policy making. All right. So that's the first thing you're going to do is you're going to now identify, hey, this is my alternate perspective. If you are super paranoid, I mean, what I just said will work. And that's what I think you should do. You could label your paragraph. If you are really, really, really paranoid, you could label paragraph 1, thesis. Paragraph 2, evidence number 1. Paragraph 3, evidence number 2. Paragraph number 4, alternate perspective. You can do that. There's no need to do it. I don't tell my students to do it. I wouldn't do it personally, but you can do that, and it's totally valid to do that. So the question that Harry is yelling into the chat with lots of question marks and taking up 5 lines of my precious chat space. Shout out Mr. Santa Maria. He's a real one. I don't know if he's a real one, but you know what? It's not like a dirty thing you're making me say. So shout out to Mr. Santa Maria. You're a real one. That's what Brady tells me. Okay. So on the other hand, some may argue that the president should have more power over domestic policy because. So what Harry's yelling at me about is, do you need evidence? The answer is kind of. Not really. All you need to do is to give a reason why somebody would say that the president should have more power over domestic policy making. That's all you have to do. You don't have to use a document, all right? You do not have to use a document for the alternate perspective. You can, and if you do, that's awesome, and it makes it stronger. So if you can, then do. If you can't, try anyway. Like, don't worry about it. Just say, some say the president because the president is elected by the whole country. All that is a line of reasoning. It's not evidence. But you then will say, however, this is not correct because, and now you have to refute or rebut it. And so you will either give a reason why that isn't correct, why it's not about the president because everybody votes for him or something. You could say, however, that is not a valid reason because while everybody in the country can vote for the president, most presidents assume office with votes from less than 25% of the population, showing that he doesn't really have, majority support anyway. And now you do the really important thing, which is you reaffirm that your answer was right after all. Therefore, Congress should have more power to make domestic policy making, and essentially just say your thesis statement again, because they are closer to the people or they better represent the will of the people. And that's it. So it's a couple sentences. You make a clear transition. You have to give a reason why somebody would say that other argument. And that's the part nobody does. So this is the one that people just don't get this point because most people come in and they say, some people say it's the president, but they're wrong because. No, you have to give me a reason why some people would say it's the president. The whole point of this paragraph is to show that you understand both sides. All right. You don't have to do it to the extent and level of your evidence paragraphs, but you have to show that you understand at least a reason somebody would say that other one. All right. All right, so I'm gonna look in this. Yellow says, how long is this live? I'm dying, man. Again, just go, take a break. You can leave. It's okay. I'm not offended. Man, Father Fluff, what are we doing here? Shout out to Mrs. Johnson. I hope that's a real person. Why would you need a power? Okay, that's not to me. Could you use the 17th Amendment, Article 1? Yeah, 17th Amendment is totally different than Article 1. So by the way, the rest of the Constitution, since it was Article 1, For your second piece of evidence, you could use anything else. You could use Article 2, you could use the First Amendment, you could use anything else from the Constitution that you want. You just could not do Article 1 again. Federalists 51 and 70 are not that loose. You can only use a Federalist paper once or a Brutus once, a letter from Birmingham jail once. The Constitution, though, if it specifies a specific part, once you've done that, you do have the rest of the Constitution is open to you. Anya, could I just use the Great Compromise to support Congress and the evidence? I mean, maybe. Again, it's a higher bar, so I would strongly suggest that you do a Federalist paper or Article 1. So if you want to do Great Compromise, that's in the Constitution, right? So then all you would say is Article 1 creates a bicameral legislature. That's your way to do Great Compromise. Or Federalist 51, because it talks about how it talks about Congress being broken into two parts. So Great Compromise is in those documents. It is, trust me, easier to get the point if you name the documents, okay? So just remember, most things are in the Constitution in our class. Like, our class is all about the Constitution. Lee says, how many sentences per paragraph? Again, there's not a number to that. Lee, the answer is as many as it takes for you to get the points. I suggest 1 sentence for paragraph 1, thesis, 3-ish sentences for paragraph 2, 3-ish sentences for paragraph 3, and 2 sentences for paragraph 4. That's it. You really don't need much more than that. All right. Must evidence be quoted directly? No, it definitely doesn't need to be quoted directly. You do not need to quote stuff. You're not expected to quote stuff. It's the general idea. Allison again wants to know, can you use the although X, A, B, Y? Again, don't do that for the thesis statement. If you want to do that for the alternate perspective, you can. It's much better there than in the thesis. I feel like students end up messing up that style. If you're comfortable with it, do it for the alternate perspective. It will work. Spark says, if we can't come up with a second piece of evidence, can we skip it and write our counter argument? Yes. Again, just make clear that you have made your transition. All right. So that you have said, on the other hand, some may say that. Chisholm, please, before I go to bed, re-go over the 3 sentences in the evidence paragraph. Identify the document. Say something accurate and relevant from the document. Explain how that evidence supports your claim. And that's going to take probably at least 2 sentences, maybe 3. So the second or third, so you're going to say, here's what it said. It supports my thesis because of this. And then you close the loop saying essentially, hey, I did it. I said, therefore, this supports Congress having more power making domestic policy. Boop, boop, boop. So now you can go to bed. Anya is talking to Anya. Sir, can we use the Electoral College as an argument for rebuttal and say that because the president can win the popular vote, but lose the electoral? So that would be your count. So that would be, you have to be more clear for me, because what I'm assuming by that is that you're trying to say why the president isn't the right answer. Remember, you have to always tell me why somebody would say the other side. So if your side was Congress is the right answer, you first, before you do what you said, you have to tell me why somebody would say the president and then say what you said. That would be how you're rebutting theirs. Tamara asks, I feel like Tamara's stressed. Are you stressed? Because you're yelling in all caps. So I feel like you're stressed, girl. I don't know. Oh, I just lost it in the chat. Oh no, it's moving too fast. Okay. Where's Tamara? Lamana, you should give me a shout out and say my name right. Is it not Tamara? Tamara? Tammy? Rodriguez? Elizondo? Anya says, could I use the Great Compromise? We already said that one. I apologize to Tamara or Tamara. I think it's Tamara, but I don't know. Shout out Miss Indy again. Can you tell me your thesis? I wasn't here. Can you use Electoral College? Again, try to stick to documents whenever you can. Is it better to look at pieces of evidence you can use before the prompt to get a better idea about what you're writing about? That way you can understand. I think, is it better to look at the piece of evidence you can use? So yeah, before you pick your thesis statement, absolutely brainstorm first. So my suggestion is always figure out what can you come up with 2 things to support. Because some of these you might actually have a real life opinion. A lot of them you're not going to. But yeah, start with what you can write. And so figure out, okay, if I say Congress, I can say about, the power to tax in Article 1, and I can say about breaking the Congress into two branches so it's slower, more deliberate, or something like that from Federalist. But yeah, figure it out first for sure. So somebody asked, you couldn't use Federalist 10 and 51. Yes, you can. They are different Federalist papers. You can't use the same Federalist paper twice, but you absolutely can use, in this case, 51 and 70. My chat is kind of glitchy. I apologize. Again, just let me say thank you to everybody who's on right now. We're losing some people, which is okay. We're at the falling action of this. So thank you guys all for being here. If you want to smash your like button on the way out, if you haven't subscribed, again, we got to that 40K. So hopefully we get a little bit over that, so that when some people drop off over the next couple of days, because it's gonna be like, hey, watch this Lamana video, and you're like, I'm done with AP Gov. But you know, come on, I'm holding this chat and it still wants to move fast on me. Okay. Doot. All right. All right. Shout out Mr. Colvard from North Carolina. I appreciate him using my videos. No, you don't have to quote things from the Constitution. Green Bike Lane has been a huge help. I feel like I'm back up. It's hard because everybody puts the same things over and over again, which I get because, you know, it's tough. Shout out Mr. Trumbull, best AP Gov teacher and cross-country coach. Do we refute the alternate perspective? Yes, you do. Would I need to reference what section? No, you don't need to say Article 1, Section 8. That would not be necessary. What is a line of reasoning in a thesis? Do we need a closing paragraph? No, you don't need a closing paragraph. If you do want to do a closing paragraph, my suggestion is just write another version of your thesis statement, same side, and just write something slightly different as your line of reasoning, just in case you didn't get the point the first time. So some people like to do that. Camila, yes, you refute the alternate perspective. I think I answered that a different time just now. Avocado, sorry, I'm not back to the thesis statement again. I've done that a few times. Apologize. Please help. Do we refute the alternate perspective? Yes. Okay, that's weird. But remember, when we got our scrap paper, how can we remember the FRQ? Okay, I'm just gonna ignore that because it's a little weird. All love. Mr. Colvert again, Jocelyn, Lamana, what's a good strategy for the strategy? So this is the last thing I said I was gonna do. FRQ strategy. Okay, so Mr. Groff, again, shout out. Okay. FRQ strategy. This is not for people getting 5s. My people getting 5s, you might want to just sit down and do it in order. Like I said, some people want to start off with the easy one. For the people who are trying to pass, all right? So this is, I'm talking probably not to a lot of people who are here, honestly. This is to the people who have just started like 3 days ago and they don't know how to write the FRQs. There is an order of operations that you should probably do. And I think that order is FRQ number 2, part A and part B, FRQ number 3, part A, and then the first 2 sentences of the argument essay. All right, so I'll say that again. FRQ 2, part A and B, you have half the points there. FRQ 3, part A, and then the first part of part B. So A is what was the constitutional clause of your required case. Part B is what were the facts holding a reasoning of your required case. And then FRQ 4, the argument essay, the first 2 sentences, thesis statement, and your first piece of evidence. If you do those 3 things, you're at 22.5 points out of 60. So you've gotten over 1/3 of your points, and you have literally written 5 sentences, but 2 of them are identifies. So part A on number 2, 1 sentence, identify. Part B is describing a trend, 2 sentences, and you have right there, you're at 7.5 points. FRQ 3, part A, 1 sentence. You get more points. Part B, 1 sentence, the facts, the reasoning, or the holding of your required case. You got, again, another 7.5 points. FRQ 4, 1 sentence thesis statement, 1 sentence for the first piece of evidence, and you're at 7.5 points on that one also. All right, so that's my advice. Those are the easy points. The other points are all tougher. All right, FRQ 1, concept application, are the toughest points. They are the most valuable. So they give you 20 minutes, but you should probably spend more than 20 minutes on the concept application. That's the one to write more stuff on, okay? Part C on FRQ2, remember, draw conclusion. Give me a reason why that evidence or that trend might exist. Give me a reason or a conclusion of what might happen because of that trend, whatever it is that it's asking you for. Alina is saying, so we need 2 evidences for one claim. Yes, 2 pieces of evidence to support the one claim that you made. That is absolutely correct. That's absolutely right. Anya, we need 2 pieces of evidence to support one claim, right? Yes, correct. Shout out Mrs. Johnson. On my life, we were all getting 5s. Love it. Did you say to close the loop after the evidence or at the end of the essay? Both. Honestly, after each evidence paragraph, I close the loop. If you want to close the loop again at the end, you can. But I say close the loop 3 times. So you are, to me, you're going to essentially write your thesis statement 4 times in the argument essay. So of your 8 sentences, like 4 of them are going to be the same. This is not a difficult thing to write. Therefore, Congress should have more power to make domestic policy. Some people will say it's the president because the president is blah, blah, blah. However, it's better because it's Congress and give a reason why it's better for it to be Congress or why it's bad for it to be the president. This shows that Congress should have more power making domestic policy. Anya says, what is the maximum amount of points you can lose for the FRQs and still get a 5? Nobody knows. It depends every year. It depends on your multiple choice score. Again, what I think is a reasonable thing to point to is to you should be getting about 75% of the FRQ to get a 5. That's a reasonable amount. That doesn't require you to be perfect on the multiple choice. But yeah, about 75% should get you there, which isn't bad. Because remember, we just got a third of the points from the easy stuff. And then the fact that you know your AP Gov content, you'll be okay. Kaysen says, Carrie Lamanna, in all seriousness, what would happen if I mentioned bench wrong in my refutation? Answer me before I get mad. You don't want to see me mad. Nothing will happen. You can do it. You can shout out your teacher in there. That's fine. Chandler, is that Bing? Chandler asks, did you do FRQ predictions? I did. I'm not great at FRQ predictions. So I predicted McDonald versus Chicago and New York Times versus US for the core comparison. I will predict that FRQ number 1 is federalism. So I think it's going to be a state versus federal issue. I think that FRQ2 will be about a graph. Who cares what it's about? It doesn't even matter, honestly. And I think that FRQ4 is going to be about civil liberties, individual rights, is what I will say. Versus liberty versus security argument essay. Can I shout out Mrs. Fruhoff's period 1? I'm certain I didn't say her name right. Freuhoff. I feel bad now, but there you go. Shout out to Miss Freuhoff's period 1. You guys are amazing. And apparently a very well-prepared class because Green Bike Lane has been killing in this chat. Gecko Gamers, can we make the reasoning and evidence 2 different paragraphs? You can. I don't think there's any reason to do that. If anything, I think that confuses the reader, but yeah. Jackson hasn't done a single FRQ all year. You're okay. Look at them. Google them right now. Shout out Mr. Woodward. All right, did that. Shout out Mrs. Johnson. Shout out Jada's friends, Gabby, Addie, Ava, and Brooke, studying AP Gov. Love you guys. All right, awesome. Shout out, there's a typo there, probably the one from Chicago, though, YouTube Nickel. Miss Azoff, Miss Lyons. Love that Miss Lyons shows my videos. All right, so we're wrapping up here. I'm done with anything serious. So you guys get out of here. Go study, go relax, go rest. Keep, watching videos. Watch my speed run. Watch it in normal speed once, and then watch it at 2x and just heads explode for that one. Shout out to Brian. Giovanni is still here. Seems like Giovanni is not quite as hated at the moment. So, Giovanni, reveal yourself. Who are you? Shout out Mr. Vandermolen. Shout out Mrs. Lyons again. I'm doing the same ones over and over. Mr. Guacoria. I don't know how to say that one. Shout out to Radon. Mrs. Lyons, I see the same ones over and over again, apparently. Jackson still hasn't done a single FRQ, not one all year long. Use oh yay. Please trust Carolina. Please say this. It saved me so much. Yeah, oh yay is awesome. You have my videos too, but whatever. I use oh yay to make my videos. Like, let's be real. Oh yay is absolutely awesome. Shout out Mr. Woodward again. All right, we still don't want Kaysen mad. Hopefully Kaysen has acknowledged that. Okay, we have a yes from Kaysen, so Kaysen is aware. Shout out Mr. Liang, number one AP Gov teacher in the U.S. Do you think Shay's Rebellion will be important? I think if it's on there, it'll be an easy multiple choice question. Don't even worry about it. That should be one that you get easily. Nah, seriously though, how can we best remember the rubrics? I'm really having trouble remembering the rubrics. The good thing about the argument essay is that it gives you the instructions like we just saw. It says do these 5 things. Do the best that you can. Like, hopefully this helps. There's a video I have going over the argument essay, so you can just watch that video. It's, nice and neat, organized. And so that might help. Again, Miss Kavansiger, I tried. I don't know if there's a typo with a C and a V being back to back. That doesn't look right. But you never know. People's names sometimes are tough. Vansiger. Okay. Shout out Mrs. Spivey, Mrs. Mack, Anya Kyler, Ms. Lyons, Ms. Spivey, Mr. Woodward. Okay. All right. So I think we are pretty much ready to get out of here. I'm going to scroll all the way down. If you haven't gotten your shout out yet, then do it again. So I'm going to skip all those ones. Mr. Kramer, Mr. Brace, Ms. Azoff, Mr. Davenport, Mr. Cook, Mr. Brace, Mr. Nesper, Mrs. Minch, Mr. Kramer. This is scary because I'm reading them too fast. Mr. Davenport, Mr. Brace, Mr. Heimler. Who's that Mr. Heimler fellow? Never heard of him before. Do good. Thanks for everything, money. Lil Killa out. Ms. Muhammad, Ms. Novelli, Mr. Davis, Ms. Moss, Anya Ayer, Alina Bell, Ms. Meyer, Mr. Ellis, Ms. Azoff, Mrs. Minch. All good. It's a Russian name. Okay, so that was a real name. I'm sorry I couldn't say her Russian name. I'm reading a Russian novel right now. I love Russian novels. Mr. Brace, Mrs. Grazer, Mr. Vicari, Mr. Davis, Mr. P. Good night, Alina Bell, Mrs. Singh, Mr. Ellis. Okay, these are the same ones again. Peter. Got to shout out Peter B and Alex R for sure. Always. What are earmarks? Asks Vanessa. It's money that is intended, set aside for a specific purpose. So it's money that is allocated for a specific thing. Is 45 out of 55 good for MCQ? Yeah, that puts you on good track for a 4. You would need to really kill it on the FRQs to get a 5. You'd also have to mess them up pretty bad to, do worse, to not pass. So yeah, it's a good score. Strong 4 potential with that. Shout out Mrs. Moore, Mrs. Singh, Mr. Ellis, Mr. Gracer, Mr. Oxlong, Ms. Hindi, Ms. Muhammad, Mr. P. Mrs. Minch, one more time. I'm not going to say Mrs. Minch again. Ms. Defoe, Mr. Mees, Mr. Novelli, Ms. Hindi, Muhammad, Zweniger, Mrs. Moore, Mr. Winkler, the big wink, Mr. James, Miss Boyles, Miss Hendy. Tamara wants a shout out. Oh my God, Tamara. The one way I didn't say it. Oh, that's awful. I'm so sorry, Tamara. Peter, on my life, we all get in 5s. We get in 5s. All right. Tamara, like Tamara with an A at the end. Like tomorrow. Oh, man, that's so bad. Ms. Novelli. Okay, I think I've gotten everybody. Santa Maria, who is definitely real, gets a shout out. Mr. Boyles. All right, I'm not seeing any names I haven't said already. So I think I got pretty much everybody, I hope. Aza, try harder next time. Didn't even come close. Mr. Amato, Mr. Schofield. Yep, you're still trying. Mr. Nesper, Mr. G. All right, so with that, thank you guys all for being here. I know the ones who are left, you're probably just waiting for it. So one last time, although you still have review videos to watch, so it's not going to be the last time. You guys are still going to hear this a few more times. But for the last time live, let's do it. You can say it with me at home, all right? Until next time, this has been a money production. See you guys.